Thank you. A little correction. It's my level 1 project to the first speech before evaluation. I'll go ahead now. First semester of engineering of my undergraduate program, final exams, basic electrical engineering exam. I wasn't prepared for the exam. Or should I say, I couldn't prepare for the exam because of the state of mind I was in. The whole semester, I wasn't feeling well. I was suffering from depression and even had suicidal thoughts. I hadn't prepared for the exam, and that day, as I walked into my campus, I saw my friends sitting along the lawn, lively, chatting away with each other. And looking at them, I felt like a complete loser. In the exam hall, I was able to attempt just 3 questions. And the remainder of the time, I looked blankly at all the busy faces penning down their answers. All the while scolding myself, Deepa, you're such a failure. You're not going to amount to anything. You're done. Good evening, Toastmasters at Guildford speakers and guests. I scored 29 marks out of 100 in my exam that day. I failed for the very first time in my life in an exam. And it was a huge deal for me. Let me explain why. Ever since I can remember as a child, I was expected to become a scientist, an engineer, or a doctor. Do well in school. That was the message floating all around me. And it was not told outright. It was very sneaky. If I showed them that I was good at drawing, they would say, oh, there are many people better than that. Concentrate on something better. If I went and participated in a sports event, they would say, don't spend too much time on it. It'll lead you nowhere. If I went to an extracurricular activity, they would say, Deepa, focus on your studies. This is not important. So I grew up to believe that the only goal worth having in life was to excel in academics. Let me describe little Deepa to you. She must have been this short, and she was viciously competitive at school. In fact, she couldn't tolerate anybody who outbeat her in academics. If they stood next to her, spoke to her, she would cringe. Do you remember those annoying kids who'd run behind you and ask you after any exam results were out, hey, how much did you score in English? What about maths? That was me. Now I laugh about it, but back then it was that toxic attitude with which I grew up. And you can expect over the years, this unreal expectation on myself, not giving room for failure, and performance pressures took a toll on me. My grades began to drop, and by the time I was in engineering, I was in a sinking boat. Basic electrical engineering exam was the first exam I ever failed in my life. And it dramatically brought a shift in my life and priorities. After the exams, I went and took professional help. I was forced to reevaluate my life and priorities. This long road to recovery began. I began to realize slowly that there was much more to life than just academics, very evident to us, but back then for me, not so evident. And then I decided to let loose my goals. I was holding my goals so tight that it began to hurt my hands. I began to invest in my overall development as an individual. As part of therapy, I took art and craft classes, went swimming, went morning exercising, car driving. And at college, I decided I'm going to spend time in building genuine friendships. I even began to participate in all the activities that I always dreamt as a child. I went emceed at events. I became an editor in for my college newsletter. And even took the next step and even began to participate in fashion contests. That introverted girl began to grow a personality. Now, you must be thinking, with all the new distractions in her life, my grades must be slipping down. But no, something magical happened. My grades began to climb up. You know why? Because this time I was stress-free. Now, you might be thinking, this is a classic story of a disillusioned child growing up in a disillusioned society with unreal expectations. What does it got to do with my life? Let me tell you, this is not just my story. It's the story of everybody in this virtual room today. My goal was to do well in academics. Perhaps yours, Tom, is to buy a dream house. Perhaps Toastmaster Bob, yours is to travel the world. Whatever your goals are, you need to learn to hold it right and not be obsessed by it. When you learn, goals are like the sand that I hold in my hand. The more tight you hold it, the more you squeeze it, your goals will slip away from you, just like the sand is escaping from my hand right now. You need to learn to hold it right. When you don't obsess over it, when you let loose and work towards it, I'm not telling don't have goals, work towards it, have goals, plan for it, but allow room for failure and don't be obstinate and stubborn on it. When you do that, instead of you running behind success, success will come running behind you. So ladies and gentlemen in the room, whatever your goals are, remember this. Learn to hold it right. Don't hold it tight, hold it right. Mr. Toastmaster.